Martin, 0-3 at Old Trafford. Was that about roughly where you thought it would look like come the end of 90 minutes?
We talked about it, didn't we, on Friday?
Yeah.
We went with a 3-1 score. So I apologise for getting the score wrong, but it was always going to be a victory for Man City. I thought they were so polished, the way that they played their football. Worlds apart, both clubs. Obviously, you know, we heard Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher getting involved in a good argument, actually, after the game. And Gary talking about infrastructure. And we know that's light years behind Man City, but the football team itself, you know, the way those triangular passes, they pass it 1 touch, 2 touch. The emergence of Foden now, Bernardo Silva, Jim, what a wonderful talent. They're football controllers. They control the passing. Yeah. He's the brain on the pitch for the manager.
But that Manchester United side wasn't like a patch in the ones you guys used to go up and play against. You and Vieira and Henry and the others.
It wasn't. And when you maybe very well means something very different in the language of the Dutch language, because the manager keeps saying that. Every time I hear him in a press conference afterwards, he keeps saying, maybe that one day they'll believe it. But what I'm seeing in the performances, we talked about that on Friday, not convincing at all. And it was exactly the same yesterday. So an awful lot to do there.
An awful lot to do. So Simon, will get into it. And I want to hear from United fans this morning. Never mind about the Glazers and everything else that's going on behind the scenes. Let's talk about on the pitch. On the pitch is where it counts. It was 11 against 11 and Manchester City left them for dead. Is the Manchester gap between United and City actually widening as opposed to shortening? Well, thereafter, listen to Ten Hag.
The 3 games before we won, and the spirit is very good. The fighting spirit is very good. So yeah, I think we are on our way up. The start was difficult, but now we are on our way up, and I'm sure when injuries getting back, we will be stronger. But therefore we have to take patience. But I'm happy with some subs of some injuries coming back, and then our side will be stronger.
We'll be stronger. We're on the way back. Martin said on this show quite recently that Ten Hag's out of his depth, Simon. It could well be a matter of time. Do you think it is?
Well, that's the argument that not so much I put, but I characterise in a question by suggesting people like Ibrahimovic, who did an interview the other day talking about big players playing for him in Holland, nowhere near the comparison of Manchester United, and whether United were going to give him time to grow into this job, because I think that nothing prepares you to be the Manchester United manager. It's a whole different set of dynamics, whole different set of discussions, whole different set of expectations than most football clubs in world football. I think if you look at the performance yesterday in isolation, yes, if you want to take facts over sentiment, he's right to suggest that Manchester United have beaten Man City 3 of the last 4 times, if that's what he's suggesting, and that's borne out by facts. The problem is that those individual games don't count towards winning leagues. Winning leagues means you're consistent over 38 games and being better than the opposition, rather than in individual moments when Manchester derbies take over. What I was disappointed about, clearly Manchester City are a better side than Man United. And right now, Manchester United as a side don't stack up to Man City. But where I thought Man United are disappointing is they're so easy to play against. There doesn't seem to be any resistance, and there doesn't seem to be a propensity to make it difficult for the opposition. If you can't beat them in footballing terms, make it ugly, make it difficult, make it a Manchester derby where you lay gloves on people, metaphorically.
Yes, yeah.
And they don't do that either. And that's where I think Roy Keane was coming from. We had the usual framework of a debate about why Man United is failing from Gary Neville, and that's his point of view. He's entitled to it.
Yeah, and you're almost at change the record.
Listen, that's his point of view. He can't change the record, can he? Because that's the record that he believes needs to be played. And to some extent, he has a point. But when you're dealing with the metrics and the macro and the micro of a game, you're dealing with what's happening on that pitch. And Keane picking up on the issue with Fernandes as an example of a leader which does not embody the culture that Man United needs to start embracing is absolutely right. And do you know why it's right on? Because that's the controllable that Ten Hag can control.
Yeah. And it's what we see with punditry, isn't it? Less is more. What was more telling? What Roy Keane said, instead of listening to Gary for 10 minutes. I know Gary wants to talk about excellence, and he talks about infrastructure, training ground, and all of those things, yes, will have to come. I wonder if it is that Gary wants to be the director of football. Keeps mentioning there's no director of football. Should they work with some of the former players? I mean, what we've sat there before as Arsenal players. It's now 10 years since they won a Premier League, 20 years for an Arsenal player. And it does become the same. It's difficult for them. They love the club. They have a great feeling for the football club. And many times they've said this manager's not good enough. And I don't think they really want to go there. But they probably realise that is the case this time round again.
Can you make the argument, in all fairness, and I know that the world has turned, that Ferguson, when he walked through the door in 1986, was good enough for Manchester United? And the argument might be that it took him a long time to get to a point where Manchester United were reflective of the Ferguson that became the Ferguson, i.e. great at Aberdeen, but Aberdeen is one thing, Manchester United is another. So if we're going to suggest that this guy, Ten Hag, isn't good enough, it's because we've seen the length and breadth of it. United and everything that goes on with United, whether it's a takeover, whether it's players left, right and centre falling out of favour or creating problems for the football club, is a football club. Someone said something the other day, I think it was Martin Samuel, said that when Man United got beat by Liverpool last year, there were 3 articles of why Liverpool were doing well and 11 articles of how bad Man United were. That is the space that a Manchester United manager operates in.
Let's just talk, Jim. I want to say that. I want to say that. No, I want to say this. Right now, you look at the manager, and he said, look, okay, midfield's not quite strong enough. Let's get Amrabat in. Okay, so you get Amrabat in to manage the midfield. So he's the Rodri of their team. Okay, what does he do? He takes him off at half time. What is he thinking, the manager? Can you explain that to me? When we ask him questions after the game, can they go into the tactics? Because it seemed to me the answers are coming from shaped questions by the Sky broadcaster. Well, actually, I'd like to know what his opinion. Don't ask him a question. Yeah. You tell us. You analyse your team because it's not very good.
Good point.
It's not very good, and I think he's kidding himself by saying that.
Yeah. I mean, Pete, there's one, Lee, Manchester United. You can't just say forget the Glazers. City are where they are because of their off-pitch structure, etc. We've heard all that, Simon.
Yeah, no one is saying forget the Glazers. No one is saying forget the fact forget the fact you've got a leaky roof. No one is saying forget the fact that that the training ground could do with an enhancement. But there is a point when you're dealing with the actual performance on a field on a Sunday afternoon, which is the manager's jurisdiction. Yeah. He won't want the excuse of the boardroom. He's the one that's spending £18 million on Anthony and letting Man United overpay because he must have that particular player.
But we changed the captain, but why do we not change the manager then? Because the manager changed the captain, took Maguire out, under that cloud, brings Fernandes in, gets rid of Pogba over that same situation. There's an internal fight for who's the most creative player.
The question is, and must abound, does the manager have the capability to grow into the job, and does Bruno Fernandes have the capability to grow into a captain?
On Ten Hag, what do you think?
I would suggest that I don't think he does, and I never have done, and I maintain the view that I said, albeit slightly clumsily last year, that he's a small man in a big suit. I don't think he has the opportunity or the toolkit to be able to overcome all of the challenges.
What Anthony did when he came off the pitch at the end of the game, does that show more than else how much discipline or lacking they are in discipline, and that nobody is really listening to the manager when you see that he spent most of the time he was on the pitch trying to get sent off?
Martin, take us to the break. In a sentence, is Ten Hag the man to get them where they want to get
Jim,
to?
He's got it there to prove it. I think he's going to be given time. I don't think they want to start again. When Ratcliffe comes in eventually and takes his share of the football club, I think he's under enormous pressure. And until that happens, if it does, it's up to him to get out of trouble. I'm not sure he's got the capability of doing it.
Okay, Manchester United have now lost as many Premier League games at Old Trafford since Sir Alex retired as they did during his 26 years at the football club. But even if they got rid of Ten Hag right now, what difference would it make in terms of who's going to come in and replace him? Let us know, United fans. Give it to us this morning on where the team is, where the club is, and what you think of Ten Hag.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.